Hey, everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for being here. Got another great show for you. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday. You know, whether it's the end times or not, let's have some damn fun during the end times, right? So enjoy your weekend, but also thanks for tuning in and learning what's actually going on in the world. I'm having an okay Saturday. I noticed this shows I'm a man of the people. I got a hole in the shirt here. It might have been a bullet that was shot through there, not certain, but I think it shows I'm a man of the people. When you have holes in your clothes, and not KKK holes in the hoods. That's a very different type of hole cut in those. But in all seriousness, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to if I sew it, it'll look like garbage. I'll look like a scarecrow or something. So what am I supposed to take it to someone to get it sewn well? Please fit, like I'm going to walk or get in a car or something to go because this little tiny, no, I'm putting my foot down on this. Sick of this cultural pressure to have every piece of clothing not have giant holes in it. Anyway, that was not the first topic. That was not the first news story. So let's get into it. Thanks for being here. Please make sure you click subscribe, click follow, click thumbs up, all those things. I am one of the most suppressed and censored comedians in America. Actually, I'll be talking more about another suppressed and censored comedian here in a minute. But we're going to the main story today is that the ruling elite, some of the ruling elite of America, I'm talking people in the administration, people in former administrations, the true ruling elite of this country, some of them, a certain faction has begun to admit that we're witnessing the end of the U.S. empire. Now, that doesn't mean they're not couching it in a lot of propaganda and a lot of bullshit and all that stuff, but the admission is there. And I'm going to reveal some of that. But before we do that, let's send some nice, warm regards to Henry Kissinger, turning 100 years old. Thank goodness he is still around, he's still at his fighting weight. I don't know if you know that. He's got six-pack abs. It's not actually a six-pack abs. It's a six-pack of bulges coming out of his throat. So it's still a six-pack. He still has a six-pack, but it's these kind of weird corpuscles, or I don't know what they are, filled with fluid off his neck. And he still has a six-pack. So he wants everyone to know that. He's been working very hard on that. Just thought I'd give you a little reminder, as many people have been doing, of what it is Henry Kissinger stands for. And before I even do that, let's remember that he is beloved by both parties because they're one party, right? So it's not like, oh, he was a Republican, he was in the Nixon administration, and yet why do the Democrats love? Because they're one group. They're one group. It is one group of sociopathic a-holes, to be polite. And so they both love him. Both sides love him because he helped craft the U.S. empire that has ruled the world in many regards since the end of World War II. He was part of that, and he somehow continues to be part of that. I don't know how he's still above ground. I'm one of the many, I believe many, that believe he should be below ground right now, dead or alive. Like, whether he's still kicking at 100 or not, below ground. Just put him in a hole. Anyway, here is, by the way, Hillary Clinton called him a good friend. Good friend, and I think she even said mentor. But either way, good friend to Hillary Clinton's, good friend of the Clinton machine, good friend, obviously, of the Nixon machine, good friend of really every presidential group. They all love him. He's adored. They take his advice. They've taken it throughout his 100 years. I believe age 2 was the first time he advised the U.S. empire. Anyway, so this is from Going Underground. They often do a lot of great work. Anyway, Henry Kissinger turns 100 today. Here's some of the things he's known for. the U.S. carpet bombing of Cambodia, which killed between 150,000 and 500,000 civilians, approving each of the 3,875 bombing raids between 1969 and 70. He approved everyone, and he killed upwards of 500,000 civilians. That means it killed more civilians in our carpet bombing of Cambodia than U.S. military died in World War II. In the entirety of World War II, you did not have 500,000 U.S. military dying. But we killed that many civilians just in Cambodia, just during the Vietnam War. He approved Argentina's dirty war against left-wing Argentinians, which killed around 30,000 innocent people fighting for left-wing change in Argentina. He oversaw many of the years of the U.S. bombing of Laos, in which the U.S. dropped 260 million bombs on the country, which killed an estimated 200,000 people. He approved that, oversaw it, supported it, lobbied to get the rest of the support from our government. Oversaw the Nixon years of the U.S. imperial wars on Vietnam. The final death toll of the war was 2.5 to 3 million Vietnamese deaths. Helped organize Augusto Pinochet's fascist coup in Chile. Thousands killed in the formative years of Pinochet's regime. And of course, we helped go into Chile and coup their government in the first 9/11, the 1973 9/11, and kill Salvador Allende, the socialist head of Chile. Gave the green light for Indonesia to invade East Timor, resulting in a brutal occupation that would last 24 years. Hundreds of thousands died. And this photo you're seeing of him now, that is him at age 23. That is what he looked like at 23. You can imagine what he looks like now. Actually, that's what his soul looked like at 23. It's just now his outer appearance matches his soul. So that's good. And that is just a short list of what Kissinger has been responsible for. There's also all the kind of unofficial advising he's done over the years. It's tough to say how many of these ideas either came from him or were supported by him, such as the invasion of Iraq, etc. There's been many anti-war groups and anti-war activists who have tried to, enact citizen arrests on him, bring war crimes charges against him. Code Pink is one of the most prevalent. They showed up in Congress and tried to arrest him, maybe on multiple occasions. I know at least once. And they were not allowed to arrest him. I don't know if you're familiar with how U.S. law works, but they often don't let you arrest our war criminals. I don't know why that is. I don't know why you can't just walk up to these war criminals and just throw some handcuffs on them and send them to your own personal Hague in your basement. But they didn't let them arrest him. And in fact, John McCain, who was overseeing the committee that day, the hearing that day, called the Code Pink activists low-life scum for trying to arrest a known war criminal who has killed millions, has been responsible for the death of millions. So, good guy, 100 years old. If you'd like to send him a cake, definitely do that. Just thought we should take this moment to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and just celebrate the fact that the good always live very long. The best of us live very long. The evil die young. That is always how it works, as you can see here. Okay, so, and by the way, and this will segue to our next story, our main story. Kissinger has come out, it'll probably be his final public statement, or very well might be, and gave a brief speech on how the U.S. should end the proxy war in Ukraine, There should be a peace deal and it should end. And I know you're thinking, why would such a war criminal that has supported the U.S. empire so long not want war in Ukraine? Because he sees that is actually harming the U.S. empire. It's actually a detriment to the U.S. empire that we created this proxy war in Ukraine. It's been boomeranging mightily and harming the U.S. empire. And that is our lead story today. So this is a speech by Fiona Hill. Now, if you don't follow the play-by-play of this, you might not know that name, but she was the senior director for Europe and Russia of the National Security Council under Donald Trump. But she's also played other roles in U.S. government. She's a foreign affairs specialist and an author, and former official in U.S. National Security Council. And so she is one of the ruling elite, and she advises the ruling elite. And many of the ruling elite care what she says. So this is not a top secret speech that she gave, but this is one of these internal speeches that is mainly meant for the Beltway crowd, the U.S. ruling crowd that are making the decisions on whether to continue the proxy war, that type of thing, what's going on in the world. And so what I'm about to show you and what I'm about to go through is both an admission by at least a faction of the ruling elite that this is basically the end of the U.S. empire, at least hegemony. And it also has plenty of hilarious propaganda thrown in there. So I will laugh with you at the propaganda, but I also think a lot of it is quite genuine and making an important point of what the ruling elite believe. And even they, at least factions of them, are admitting this is the end of the U.S. empire. All right, so let's get into this speech. By the way, for those of you at leecamp.net, watching live at leecamp.net, my locals page, I will be answering some of your questions, addressing some of your comments towards the end of this hour. So please feel free to leave comments and questions there. Also, anybody who's not a member there, you can, if you become a member, you get my new ebook, Dangerous Ideas. And soon these live streams will only live at leecamp.net. They will go live everywhere, but they will only be long-term. They will only be at leecamp.net, which is my locals page. All right. So let's dive into this speech. She says, more than a year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so we have the standard, she then says the brutal war Putin ignited has transformed. Okay, so that's kind of the propaganda stuff she's got to get out of the way to prove it's her virtue signaling to the U.S. ruling elite. I'm one of you, we're in a Putin brutal war. We didn't do anything. It just happened. Whoa, how did this happen? We had nothing to do with it. We didn't help create a coup in Ukraine in 2014. We didn't arm Ukraine. We don't arm Nazis right now. None of that. I don't know what you're talking about. So just do all that stuff. But still, important stuff said coming up. The brutal war Putin ignited has transformed, as major regional conflicts often do, into a war with global ramifications. This has not, as Putin and others claim, become a proxy war between the U.S. or the collective West against Russia. Now, she claims it's not a proxy war. It's obviously a proxy war. And in fact, although she's throwing that propaganda piece out there are many in the ruling elite that I have highlighted on this live stream who have admitted it's a proxy war, perhaps the highest level of them being former CIA Director Leon Panetta has said on TV. He said, this is a proxy war, whether we call it that or not. She has to say, oh, it's not a proxy. It's a proxy war. Anyway, in the current geopolitical arena, the war is now effectively the reverse, a proxy for a rebellion by Russia and the rest against the United States. That is a key statement. She is addressing and admitting that right now we are seeing a grand rebellion of the world against U.S. hegemonic power, against U.S. rulership of the world. That and many of the ruling elite they don't want to admit this stuff, but it gets to a point where it's kind of undeniable, and she's one of the ones admitting it. The war in Ukraine is perhaps the event that makes the passing, oh, I love this line, makes the passing of Pax Americana apparent to everyone. So Pax Americana obviously means American peace, and it's the term commonly used for the peace that America has overseen since World War II. Now, I ask all of you, how much peace has America overseen since the end of World War II? I believe we've been at war almost all of that time since the end of World War II. So the idea that the U.S. is just this benevolent, peaceful entity. Oh, my people, thanks for being so peaceful under my rule. This is lovely of you. No, it's been endless war. Vietnam, Korea, where we killed a third of their population. You have Iraq. You have Iraq again. You have attacks on Iran. You have Syria. You have Libya, totally destroyed. You have Afghanistan, Yemen, Ukraine, Kosovo. It's just, and that's not even counting all the economic wars. That's just the hot wars, okay? Just this endless obliteration of countries and people. And so the idea that we've overseen peace, Pax Americana, if that's peace, then I don't want to see war, okay? It's kind of like with friends like these, who needs enemies? With peace like this, who needs war? But what she is admitting to, even though that is bullshit propaganda, what she is admitting to in that sentence is that this is the changing of an era. This is the hierarchy of the world that we have largely seen with some shifts, with some large shifts, but it's been essentially fairly stable. Obviously, there was the Cold War after World War II, so that there was still kind of two worlds until the fall of the Soviet Union. But this hierarchy is now collapsing or changing drastically. Collapse is maybe the more negative word, and she's admitting that. And she is a faction of the ruling elite. In its pursuit of the war, Russia has, and I also love that line, in its pursuit of the war, I feel like the U.S. sought this proxy war out for years and years, and every red line Russia drew, the U.S. danced on it. They actually did the Russian, dance with the legs up. They did that on the red line every time. And sure, the final actual invasion is Russian. That's a Russian decision, but the U.S. went running towards this war, trying desperately to create it, and we succeeded. In its pursuit, however, the ramifications have not been what we were hoping for. In its pursuit of the war, Russia has cleverly exploited deep-seated international resistance and, in some cases, open challenges to continued American leadership of global institutions. Now, there's the propaganda side of this, which is American leader. What is American leadership? Oh, she means the American leadership towards fucking endless war. Like, that's what we've led towards, is war against Syria, war against Afghanistan, war against Iraq, war against Iran, war against Yemen, war against, did I say Libya? War against, and then, of course, you have the ones where we haven't technically been involved in a hot war, but, Haiti, Guatemala, Honduras, Chile, you just go down the goddamn list. Of course, the war on Palestine, which anything Israel's doing is essentially the U.S., as Israel is essentially an outpost of the U.S. So, all those wars that Israel's been involved in also count really as American wars. And, that's without even getting into Africa. So it's like, that's our leadership. Oh, God. With leadership like that, I'd prefer non-leadership. I'd prefer unleadership. Misleadership? I'd prefer misleadership. It is not just Russia, she continues, that seeks to push the U.S. to the sidelines in Europe, and China that wants to minimize and contain U.S. military and economic presence in Asia, so both can secure their respective spheres of influence. Now, this is correct in many ways. Russia does want to minimize U.S. Impact on Europe. China does want to minimize U.S. impact on their sphere of influence. However, this is them wanting the U.S. to back off hegemony, to back off global rule. And that doesn't mean that in the future, none of these countries could do something that I or many disagree with. But the idea that the U.S. should rule the world is insanity. It's lunacy. And it'd be a tough argument to make even if we'd been peaceful. But we haven't. We've just tried to gut and destroy. And like I said, I haven't even addressed economic war yet. The number of millions that have died from our forced starvation around the world. So the idea that Russia would want, and really what Russia wanted that has been turned around, is Russia wanted economic cooperation with Europe, which they were largely gaining. Obviously, the biggest aspect of that was the Nord Stream pipeline, which the U.S. blew up, which is a war crime against, I mean, it's not a war crime because you're not at war technically, but it's a global crime, international crime against both Russia, who we, claim to hate, and Germany, who we claim we're allies with. So we attacked infrastructure that is also Germany's. Like, imagine if Germany, as our ally, blew up U.S. infrastructure. How do you think we'd respond if an ally just blew up some of our pipelines, some of our most important pipelines? Would we be like, that's fine by us? We never liked those pipelines much anyway. They were, I know we just spent billions making those. Yeah, we did. But yeah, I didn't like the color. They had colored it like a teal. And it's like, what pipeline? And they were like, it matches the water. And I'm like, it doesn't match the water. It's, get your fucking scuba out and look down. It's bright teal. It doesn't match the water. The fish are clearly annoyed. So I'm glad they blew up our pipeline. That's wonderful. Anyway, Russia wanted to increase the cooperation, economic cooperation with Europe. The U.S. was losing out because it's a lot cheaper for Europe to get their fuel from Russia. Of course, this doesn't just harm U.S. in terms of our money, but I mean our profit from oil, but it also harms the petrodollar, so our money writ large. And it also harms our ability to just pressure Europe to do whatever we wanted. So we, created a proxy war, blew up the pipeline, and then said, hey, Europe, you want to get back in our bed? And Europe was like, okay, I guess so. I mean, there's some idiots in Europe who are like, absolutely, can I, sir? Please, yes, get in your bed, yes, okay. There's Finland and Norway and Sweden all jumping to get into NATO. I mean, Finland was already in NATO, but Norway was already in NATO, but right? Yeah, but Finland was not. Other countries that have traditionally been considered middle powers or swing states to the so-called rest of the world seek to cut the U.S. down to a different size in their neighborhoods and exert more influence in global affairs. They want to decide, not be told, what's in their interest. And she's talking about this like this is, oh my God, can you believe it? Other countries want to not be told what's in their interest? How dare they? How dare they say they want to have their own? Ideas. It really is like we thought the rest of the world was just slaves to us, and now we're like, get back in the fields. Why are you even talking to me? Like that's as they're like, well, what if we had sovereignty? Who do you think you are? Get back out there. She continues, in short, in 2023, we hear a resounding no to U.S. domination and see a market appetite for a world without a hegemon. And you have to understand, this is not, she was an advisor under Trump, but she is not like an anti-U.S. empire gal, okay? She is a full-on hawk. She supports U.S. hegemony, but she is admitting the reality of the situation, which is much of the world is standing up and saying, we don't want the U.S. to rule the world anymore. And this is a drastic change to what the global geopolitical hierarchy has been. And it's of course not talked about in mainstream media, but many other people are misunderstanding it as well. This is a major change to the way this globe works. Now, the fear of it, the horror show of it, is that it could push us into nuclear war. But outside of certain aspects, and obviously the horror show that's been done to the Ukrainian people in general, and some Russians as well, but mainly Ukrainian. Of course, there's many people in Ukraine who consider themselves Russian. Let's not get into that right now. But so there's a lot of harm being done. However, in the long term, the decrease of U.S. hegemony, the decrease of U.S. ownership of the world is obviously a positive thing. The decrease of, the increase of multilateralism, having multiple people living the way they want in the world rather than having their countries destroyed by endless U.S. greed and belligerence, that's a good thing. But of course, she's not talking about it as a good thing. She's trying to warn her fellow ruling elites as to what is really happening right now. She continues, in this context, the next iteration of the global security, political, and economic system will not be framed by the United States alone. I love the idea that the U.S. has ever overseen global security. That's like saying a guy with a gun to your head is overseeing your security. Literally pointing a gun straight at you and saying, hey, while I do this, no one's going to hurt you. Yeah, U.S. global security. And also, yeah, obviously with a gun to billions of people's heads, we've also killed a lot of those people. So in some regards, it's us literally shooting the people in the head and then saying, I was trying to oversee your security, but some things just get out of hand sometimes. The U.S. overseeing security as we kill. Again, I know I say this number a lot, but everyone needs to remember it. We've killed, and this is a low estimate, 6 million people with just the global war on terror, just the past 20 years. And that does not count the sanctions in many countries that are not considered part of the global war on terror, such as sanctions on Venezuela, where hundreds of thousands have died because of them, are the estimates. The sanctions on, or over 100,000, the sanctions on places like, Haiti and so many others that we harm, Iran. We have sanctions on 32 countries right now, and not all of them result in a lot of death. I think our sanctions on Cuba probably don't kill that many people, but they're very harmful and they cause a lot of havoc. And then when there's a catastrophe like the earthquake in Syria, people die, people can't recover, help can't get to them because of these sanctions. Anyway, so as she continues, and this is probably the key part of the entire speech, the next iteration of global security, political, and economic system will not be framed by the U.S. alone. The reality is already something else. We are already in it. We are already in that multilateral world. It is, she continues, it is not an order which inherently points to a hierarchy and perhaps not even a disorder. A range of countries are pushing and pulling in line with their own priorities, gasp, to produce new arrangements. We in the transatlantic community may need to develop some new terminology, as well as adapt our foreign policy approaches to deal with horizontal networks of overlapping and sometimes competing structures. And the U.S. has proven ourselves at the least inept, but really corrupt and bloodthirsty, and we have not proven ourselves capable of overseeing a peace in this world, a healthy and sustainable peace. Not for a minute have we shown ourselves capable of that. So even if you wanted to say that there was somehow a better planet if there was a hierarchy with one group, one tiny cabal running the whole show, even if you were of that mind, we have not proven ourselves capable of running a sustainable, healthy world. So I think it's time for another system rather than U.S. global ownership with our 900 military bases around the world and our $1 trillion a year spent on the largest machine of mass murder that has ever existed. She continues, the regionalization of security, trade, and political alliances complicates our national security strategies and policy planning. But it may also intersect with our priorities in useful ways if we can be flexible and creative rather than simply resisting and responding when things go in directions we don't like. Now that is very true. Hey, maybe we should let other countries have their sovereignty and change and do things that we may not even like, because guess what? They're their own goddamn countries. She says, she's talking about the person that the event was named after. I suspect President Mary would recognize that the war in Ukraine is a world or system-changing war. It has stripped away the surface detail and exposed the flaws and fault lines in the international order. By flaws and fault lines, she means that people have not just bent over and gone down and just been at the beck and call of everything the U.S. wants, as the U.S. called for gut-wrenching sanctions, meaning gut-wrenching economic war against Russia. 80% of the world's population has not signed on to those sanctions. That doesn't mean they're all siding with Russia, but many of them, most of them, are saying, hey, we're not in it, okay? We're not abiding by what the U.S. wants. We're not doing what Russia wants. We're just our own thing. You guys have your proxy war on your own. And that is not what the U.S. wants. The U.S. wants every country to just be in our grasp, and we can just strangle them whenever we need to, and they'll tap out whenever needed. She continues, since 1991, the U.S. has seemingly stood alone as the global superpower. But today, after a fraught 2-decade period shaped by American-led military interventions, that's the softest and propagandistic way of saying that. Shaped by American-led military interventions. Another way of saying that, shaped by America's brutal, disgusting, psychopathic wars of choice that have killed millions of innocent people. That's the better and more accurate way to say that. She continues, and direct engagement in regional wars, the Ukraine war highlights the decline of the U.S. itself. This decline is relative economically and militarily, but serious in terms of U.S. moral authority. Please point to the time over the past 30, 40, 50 years that the U.S. has had moral authority. The U.S. never in recent times, never in memory has had moral authority. I mean, never, honestly, in the entire history of our country, if you look at what we did to the Native Americans. We never once had moral authority. What we had for a while was such a brutal ownership of the world, such a brutal hegemony, that other countries would go along with the quote-unquote moral stance that the U.S. spouted. So when the U.S. said the moral thing is to invade Iraq, hang Saddam Hussein from the highest rafters, even though he used to be his hanging him from raptors, actually, that would be a new punishment. I'd actually be for that. I would support that punishment for Henry Kissinger. He should be hanged from the highest raptors. And the thing is, raptors, a lot of people don't know this, velociraptors, when they're high, they're actually more vicious because they get the munchies. So if Kissinger were hanged from the highest raptors, then it'd be disgusting, but it'd be a show to watch. It'd be something to see, honestly, and it'd be deserved. We all know it'd be deserved. So hang him from the highest raptors. Anyway, that's how smart velociraptors are. They know how to smoke a joint. But we said the moral thing is to go into Iraq, bomb the shit out of civilians, destroy the country, as many said, bomb them back into the Stone Age, hang Saddam Hussein from the highest rafters, pop his head off. You're going to hang him so hard. And even though he used to be a friend and we sold the weapons to him, but yeah, and that's the moral thing to do. And we told that to the world, and we said because WMD and we have no proof, but he does. He just does. He just does. He just does. We got. I mean, we thought he did because we had receipts that we sold him, but I think he got rid of them. But still, it doesn't matter. Whatever. He's got them. And so we told people that's the moral thing to do, and a portion of the world said, okay, I guess we can't stand up against the United States, so fine. So we never had the moral authority. What we had was the faux moral ability to bend countries to our will. We had the ability to force other countries to just pretend they were signing on to this moral authority garbage. Anyway, unfortunately, she continues, just as Osama bin Laden intended. I know. It's like bin Laden has absolutely achieved pretty much everything he wanted. The U.S.'s own reactions and actions have eroded its position since the devastating terrorist attacks of 9/11. I mean, it wasn't since 9/11. We have eroded our position from day one after World War II, because after World War II was after Germany surrendered and Japan was ready to surrender, and we dropped the atomic bomb on them anyway, atomic bombs, and killed hundreds of thousands of civilians. So that was the moment we gave away the moral authority, was the dropping of the atomic bombs. That was moment. So really there was no moment following World War II when we had the moral authority. It was gone from day one. This includes in the America fatigue, she calls it, and disillusionment with its role as the global hegemon is widespread. Yeah, fatigue is a nice way to say most of the world has woken up and saw that and seen that we are out of our minds. We're sociopathic lunatics. That's what they've realized. So yeah, that's fatigue. They're tired. They're just tired of it, you know. Kind of like how Jeffrey Dahmer's victims were just they just got Dahmer fatigue. They were just sick of being his victims, you know. So yeah, call it whatever you want. The point is, she is saying the truth that most of the world is done with listening to America. She continues, this includes in the United States itself, a fact that is frequently on display in Congress, news outlets, and think tank debates. For some, the U.S. is a flawed international actor with its own domestic problems to attend to. For others, the U.S., the U.S. has its own domestic problems that we do not attend to. We ignore, our rulers ignore average people every single day of the week, don't give a shit about people struggling, with 65% of America saying they don't know how to pay, or they have had trouble paying for basic necessities over the past year. Ruling elite don't care. Ruling elite haven't done anything, but they sent $100 billion to Ukraine, so that's good. For some, the U.S. is a flawed international actor with its own domestic problems to attend to. For others, the U.S. is a new form of imperial state that ignores the concerns of others and throws its military weight around. All right, there's a lot more, but I'm going to skip down to one little thing she says about BRICS and then wrap this up. Outside Europe, the interest in new regional orders is more pronounced. In this context, with the BRICS, which for its member states offers an alternative to the G7 and G20, is now attractive to others. 19 countries, including Saudi Arabia and Iran, purportedly showed interest in joining the organization. Countries see the BRICS as offering flexible diplomatic arrangements and possible new strategic alliances, as well as different trade opportunities between the United States and Europe. BRICS members and aspirants, however, have very disparate interests. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up there, but I think this is very important because this is the U.S. ruling elite. She's one of them, but she's also speaking to a large group of U.S. ruling elite. And that's why people like her write these speeches, is for the elite. They don't think that this is ever going to be read or useful to your average citizens. That's not its point. It is meant to dictate kind of the U.S. policy behind closed doors, not what's said publicly. And whether there's a lot of, little propaganda in there or not, it shows even a large faction of the U.S. ruling elite understand that this is the end of U.S. hegemony. This is the end of U.S. economic rule, and things are splitting into a multilateral world. Which, of course, if I say this a lot, if you were to deal with that like adults, if you were to deal with that like evolved beings, then that would be good things. That would mean we could all cooperate rather than one country saying, I'm going to tell everybody what to do. All cooperate into a technologically advanced, sustainable planet, a globe that we can all live on for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, and everyone can get by because we live in a post-scarcity world. If supplies and resources were distributed appropriately, you would not have our environment collapsing. You would not have fish populations and animal populations collapsing. None of that would be happening if we actually dealt with it like evolved beings, but we don't. We basically make decisions like we're a virus and we want to murder the earth. So, hope that summed it up well. All right. I spent too long on that, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you will. If you feel like you got getting $1 out of this episode, I got a lot more to come, so don't hang up yet. Hang up for kids out there going, what does hang up mean? Anyone under 25 right now is going, hang up what? What are you hanging? Oh, hanging Kissinger from the Velociraptors? Is that what does hang up mean? Anyway, don't hang up yet. I have a lot more to come, but if you feel like you got $1 out of this episode or any of my episodes, I hope you will become a member at leecamp.net because the minimum is $6 a month, which means you're paying about, I think I figured out it's like 38 cents an episode. So if you think you're getting 38 cents out of these, then please become a member at leecamp.net. It's the only way I support this and can keep going. All right. So this is, so the other day I brought you that, that my friend and colleague, Randy Credico, a comedian, New York comedian, long before I knew him, he was someone I looked up to as a political comedian who was boldly political and willing to say things that even harmed his career. But anyway, he has been a longtime supporter of Assange, and he has a radio show called Assange Countdown for Freedom that he does, I believe, every week that I've been on a couple of times. So I brought you a week ago or 2 weeks ago that he's been added, I think 1 week ago, that he's been added to the Ukrainian kill list because he went to Ukraine, interviewed people, interviewed Russians, interviewed people of Russian heritage in Ukraine, and got that story out. Thank you, Christine, for the donation. And so he's been added to their kill list. But now there's a new update on that. He is now, and this obviously is not Ukrainians doing this. This is the U.S. corporatocracy. He has now been banned on Twitter. And the one tweeting this out, I obviously can't show you his Twitter because it's gone, but is Dmitry Polyansky, who is a Russian diplomat. He says, another honest Western journalist put on infamous Ukrainian kill list after traveling to Donbass and reporting truth on Kiev regime's crimes. Where's the reaction? So I forgot. He says he's added to the kill list. So he's tweeting about him being added to the kill list. But you'll notice that he links to his Twitter, and the Twitter is now suspended. The Twitter's gone. So this shows that Twitter and I don't know whether you want to believe that Elon Musk is completely his own thing, not connected to the U.S. state, when in fact he is rather connected to the U.S. state. He's had longtime connections to In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital arm, going way back to his PayPal days. But anyway, outside of that, whatever you want to believe Elon Musk is, this is the U.S. corporatocracy, the largest corporations in America that in many ways own our Congress, own our government, deciding that the truth about this cannot come out, and they have now banned the Twitter of someone who revealed some of that truth. And so I wanted to bring you that update to show you that Elon Musk's Twitter is not the free place that people think it is. People are like, oh, Musk has made it free and wonderful now. No, not so much. Also, I haven't found an article about it, but I have heard that maybe he doesn't do it as much in the US, but with foreign countries, with other countries that he has deals with, business dealing with, whether it's Tesla or anything else. By the way, Tesla all over the roads in China. See, a lot of people don't realize that all these corporations have very tight links with China. So as we the American people are told, hate China every moment, all the corporations are like, we still work very tightly with China. Anyway, so Elon Musk apparently, when other countries ask him to ban or censor things, he does it immediately, or Twitter does it immediately. So it's not the free place that people are making it out to be. But I wanted to bring you, that Randy Credico's Twitter has now been banned, at least for now. I'm just shadow banned, so that's nice. I get to still tweet things out. It's just nobody sees them. I also wanted to mention that on the last live stream, I talked about someone having their having the YouTube channel deleted or banned permanently. And they believed it was because of their support and videos on RFK Jr. And I did not remember her name at the time. So I wanted to give you her name. I wanted to make that right. Her name is Lori Spencer, and you can find her on Twitter. Lori Spencer is the one who had her YouTube channel deleted, at least as of now. I imagine YouTube can always, reincarnate, bring back from the dead any channels they want to. I don't think they're going to do that for Redacted tonight. Something tells me our 250,000 subscribers are just gone to the winds, and over 2,000 videos. But anyway, wanted to give you her name. So that's more censorship. So we're seeing censorship on top of censorship on top of censorship for things like revealing the truth about Ukraine, for things like just showing clips of RFK Jr., interviewing RFK Jr., the DNC, which is tightly linked with YouTube and Google, to the level that former head of Alphabet, what is his name? Eric Schmidt, I believe. He actually created a company or an organization. He left Google to help Hillary run for president. So very tightly linked with Hillary, and Google owns YouTube. And so they seem to be heavily censoring and even deleting channels that support RFK Jr. in his primary bid. Okay, I wanted to bring you this story next and show you how it shows that activism is working yet again. I brought you something similar a few live streams ago. Okay, where the hell is it? Well, maybe I can't show it to you. Huh, that's weird. Okay, it's not letting me show it to you right now, but damn it. I wanted to show you this Israel. I can still tell you about it, but Washington Post has put out yet another article about Israel's crimes. Yeah, it's not letting me do it. Anyway, I could show you an image of it. I could take a snapshot. Look at me. I'm so technologically smart. I figured out how to do a snapshot. But anyway, Washington Post, Israel's crimes never used to be discussed in mainstream media. Completely forbidden. Now there is some light coverage, and even that is like, that's a major win, that any of these legacy media, these large outlets like Washington Post would, man, it's really not letting me do any of this. All right. But that any of these outlets would reveal the crimes of Israel is amazing to see. And it is thanks to the endless activism of thousands, if not millions of people around the world. I mean, I'd say those who support things like BDS, who support calling out Israel as the apartheid state it is, obviously goes into the millions around the world. And it is that activism that has allowed for the space for these outlets. I mean, not just the space, but the pressure that has forced these outlets to, at times, I'm not going to act like the Washington Post doesn't do tons of pro-Israel propaganda, but at times to actually reveal the crimes of Israel. I feel like the big change was maybe during the Great March of Return when Israeli snipers, IDF snipers, were just killing press, just killing children, unarmed press with press written across their vests, unarmed medics, unarmed elderly people holding flags. The only armed with flags were shot dead by snipers. And that seemed to be the moment that even a lot of our mainstream media, it felt like they had to have some coverage of that. And this is a huge step. It is a huge step, obviously, in the right direction. It's way too slow. I will not argue otherwise. But I think that when these things happen, when you see these little tiny steps of change, when you see the Washington fucking Post, and I'm sorry, but it needs to be said, when you see the Washington Post actually have an article like this, Jesus Christ, can't even read the damn thing to you. Here it is. Israeli agents conducted a raid against militants in a civilian area, killing a child. Videos from a March 16th raid in Jenin show increasingly deadly tactics by Israeli officers. And the article contains a video reenactment of just how these Israeli, I'm assuming IDF, but maybe it was some other special group, but how the IDF went in and killed not just what they consider militants, who knows what it really was, but also killing innocent people. And this is the Washington Post covering this. Unbelievable to see. 10 years ago, that article would never have been published. It never would have been written. No one would have approved it. And if they did approve it and did do it, the threats from places like AIPAC and other organizations and other corporations to pull all their ad money, etc., would have forced Washington Post to never do it again. So the space has now been created by activists, by those of us standing up and fighting back against this apartheid state, against this bullshit, against this human rights abuses that are unbelievable. And that pressure by activists created this space for this to now be happening, for this to now be published in the Washington Post, for it now to be, you see these little sprinkling of, it'll be like a quick, like you feel like you had a flash fever dream or something. CNN will do a 1 minute thing on Israel killed some civilians. What? And you're like, wait, did I just hear that? And they're like, moving on. But even just that is something. It's a step in the right direction. So I wanted to bring that to you. And I wanted to have a technology that would not let me show you the article, but close enough. All right. One more story before I get to questions and comments over at leecamp.net, my locals page. Thank you all watching at locals. Oh, I forgot to do the Rumble thing. Okay. The rest of the stream is at rumble.com/leecamp. I have a story on the number of modern slaves around the world, and it is far more than you think. And yes, the U.S. is involved. I don't know how you guys guessed that, but so I'm about to do that story. Everything else, the rest of this live streams at rumble.com/leecamp or leecamp.net, and I will see you there. Thanks for joining me as always. But for those of you watching on Rumble,